Hey guys, and welcome to another Q&A Monday video. In this video I try to answer as many of your questions as I can in as much detail as possible, but I get so many questions every day that I just can't answer them all. So if I don't get to your question in this video, don't worry, I might get to it in the next one. If not, just drop it down in the comments and I'll answer it as soon as I can. So without further ado, let's jump into the first question. Nexus says, there is actually a woman called Bloody Mary, but the story has nothing to do with the myth. Yes, you're 100% right. There was actually a Bloody Mary in real life, but as you were saying, it has nothing to do with the myth. On the last Q&A, when I started talking about Bloody Mary, it was never supposed to really be a question about her particular myth. It was just, I just used hers as an example to explain how these things just get blown out of proportion. Like, you could apply my answer to pretty much any of them. It starts off as a harmless game, one tragic event that gets told that it must have been the game, and so on and so forth. So you end up with this massive urban legend, this game where people die, and so on and so forth. Now, I thought today I could, because there were a few people mentioned it in the comments, I thought I'd sort of clarify how the real life Bloody Mary actually is intertwined with the game. Now, the game itself, Bloody Mary, it's been through so many different stages. As I was researching into it, I found out a bunch of versions that I never knew existed. Like, I think way back when, it was really designed for young women. They were supposed to like walk up a flight of stairs backwards holding a candle and a mirror, and if they looked in the mirror they were supposed to see the face of the man they were going to marry, or they would see like the face of death, like a skull, you know, Grim Reaper type figure, which meant they would die before they met that man. Like, and it's through time it's sort of developed, like it became the mirror game where you're invoking the spirit of Bloody Mary to come visit, and she appears in all different forms. It really depends where you look, because some people believe she's a witch, a ghost, or like, you know, she appears as a skeleton covered in blood, or she, you know what I mean, like sometimes she's friendly, sometimes she's not, sometimes she just screams at you, profanities and all sorts of things, and sometimes she physically attacks you. Like, it really depends where you look. There's so many different versions of it. Now, the real Bloody Mary was actually Queen Mary I, who was King Henry VIII's daughter, and she got the nickname Bloody Mary because she was heavily prosecuting the Protestants, and she executed loads of people, and she became known as quite a bloodthirsty tyrant in her day, and so the name Bloody Mary stuck. And so one other thing about her is that she was never able to have children. Like, she had loads of miscarriages, and she had a lot of trouble with husbands because of it, and so that's kind of added to the modern representation of the Bloody Mary game. So like now when you're invoking the spirit of Bloody Mary to arrive, you're saying Bloody Mary 3 times. One thing you're supposed to do is to mock the fact that she couldn't have children and things like that, and that's supposed to get a better reaction. Now, again, it's an urban legend. Like, the game probably had nothing to do with Mary to begin with. It really depends where you look on what version of the game you end up with. So it's just a game, personally. I don't see any connection. I still wouldn't recommend playing it too much, because you are still asking a spirit to arrive. Even if Bloody Mary herself doesn't arrive, you're still asking a spirit to show up. So, I mean, you're kind of asking for trouble at any point you do that. So that's it, guys. That's pretty much all I know about Bloody Mary at the moment. I hope it was interesting. Zeta asks, hey Michael, have your paranormal experiences led you to meet new people and to make new friendships? It can be either in person or on the internet. Yes, I have had the opportunity to get to know a few people online that I would consider friends. I get so many messages on Facebook and Twitter though that in itself is the problem. Like, I try to answer everyone as best I can, as much as I can. It doesn't always happen, some slip through, but I do try to answer everyone, and so that means everyone only has a small amount of time to talk to me. Like, I would love to have a conversation with you all, but it usually boils down to you ask a question, I answer it, and then move on to the next person, so that everyone can have that interaction and can get the questions answered. And so it's kind of difficult to build up a rapport or have a conversation with anyone when it's like that. There are a few, like I say, that they've caught me on days where there hasn't been a lot of messages, or I've not been busy doing other things, and I've had the opportunity to get to know them, and I would consider them friends if I see their names pop up, or I will even go on my way to see how they're doing. But it doesn't happen often. I have had the opportunity to get to know Aaron G. Thompson from Ghost Crier and Kat from Paranormal Captivity, though. Those two are awesome. You should definitely check those channels out. They're amazing and definitely worth looking at. I'll leave links in the description to those. But as I was saying, it's all online. As far as it goes, I've not had the opportunity to meet anyone in person yet. Josie asks, now that you have known this world of spirits and paranormal activity, are you afraid to die? You know, it's funny, even though I believe in ghosts and spirits and that there is some kind of afterlife there, I don't necessarily believe in heaven, and I don't think everybody becomes a ghost. So, I mean, does that mean I have to die under some sort of tragic circumstances in order to become a spirit? I don't know. And so there is a level of the unknown there that we're trying to unravel that leaves an element of fear in everybody, I think. And like, I'm kind of in two minds about it, really. On one hand, I'm like, death is just a natural part of life. It's going to happen to everyone. Why sit and actively worry about it? I'm not worried that I'm going to get hit by a bus tomorrow and then that's going to be it. I'm just going to get on with my life, and what happens, happens. If nothing happens after I die, then so be it. I've had a good life. But on the other side of the coin, it's like, I've got so many things that I want to do with my life, so many things I've not yet had the chance to achieve, that the idea of dying before that happens is heartbreaking, and that is quite a scary thought. And I think that's got to be a universal feeling, that the idea of missing out on so much after you're gone, and especially if it is just you're gone and done, then that is such a shame. And so that puts some fear in me. But it's one of those things you just don't think about that side of it. You just go with the initial side of my thought process that it's going to happen to everyone. Just get on with your life the best you can. So, yeah, I know it's not a very distinct answer. It's not very definitive for you, but that's the best I got. CM asks, is it possible that an entity that was attached to a house leaves when he or she saw that we were taking good care of the house? Yes, I think so, to be honest. I think if a house you live in has an intelligent spirit, now the intelligent spirit's important because I believe if you're an intelligent spirit, you are the exact same person you were when you were alive. I think there is no reason just because you've died that you're going to change. You have the same personality, the same attachments as you ever did. And so you tend to find, like living people, we grow attached to things like objects, houses, just places in general. And the idea of someone else going into those places or handling an object you cared about and not looking after it, like that bothers you. And I think the same thing would happen like if you grew up in a family home, or this was your place up until you died, you've not given that house up, like you've not left it willingly, so you stick around, you haunt the place, and then somebody moves in and they're not looking after it, like that would bother you. And so you would make things difficult. You're like, you shouldn't do that, and you'd give them the paranormal activity that we recognise, that there are cases all across the board of places being haunted and people trying to renovate them when the activity kicks off and forces the builders out. And it's because they don't want things changing. And I think over time, like people, you kind of get over it a little bit. Like you grow to accept, fine, that this is not my property anymore. This belongs to this family. They're clearly looking after it. And you have the peace of mind to move on. Like what they move on to, I've no idea. Do they just travel somewhere else? Do they cross over? I don't know if that's kind of plays a part into finding peace of mind, but I think it's definitely possible. I don't see why the way they think is any different just because they're dead. Dragon asks, what are your thoughts about black-eyed kids? All I really know of them is that it's an urban legend that states paranormal entity takes the form of children in order to deceive adults. They're supposed to be linked to disappearances and abductions and things. The only distinguishing feature is that they've got pale skin and black eyes. Now, they do say that demons can't take the perfect form of a person. There's always something slightly wrong, like people have said they've seen people with tails and knew that it was a demon, or feet backwards or something like that. You could argue that these are demonic forces that are actually trying to take people away. There have been no stories of people that have actually let them in, which obviously lends itself to the tale. Usually when you hear people reporting seeing black-eyed children, it's someone who's been at the door, answered it, and noticed that they have like black eyes and pale skin and decided to tell them to go away and that they weren't going to help them. And in those instances, generally, the children left. Now, if that was a demonic entity and it knew it wasn't going to get in, maybe it'd leave peacefully. It knew it didn't work, but generally you'd think it'd do more. Some people think that they're aliens. Some people think they're ghosts. Like, it's just an urban legend, to be honest. I don't think there is any one answer to it. I think it's a story where one tragic incident happened and it's just continued to go. Now, there have been newspapers actually done articles on Black Eyed Children. There's been a movie about it. Like, it's just, it started, I think, in the 90s, and it's just gone away with itself from there. Andy asks, did you see Most Haunted's full body apparition last week? Yes, I did see this. I think it was a couple of weeks ago now. And anyone that didn't watch it, basically Most Haunted were investigating Wentworth's Woodhouse. And I think it was Wentworth's Woodhouse. And I think it was Carl and Stu were in a room and they heard some knocking or footsteps down the hall. Went and investigated and caught a full-bodied apparition walking up the stairs at the other end. When they went and had a look, there was nobody there. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. I'll leave a link to the video in the description. I can't show it for copyright reasons, but I'm not a person to debunk or be a naysayer or in any way judge them on anything. Like, if they say they caught a full-bodied apparition, then good for them, they've caught a full-bodied apparition. But I will take anything that I see on TV with a grain of salt. Like, there's a lot of heavy production goes into it. They are very much reliant on ratings, and Most Haunted aren't exactly known for capturing paranormal evidence on a regular basis, especially when you put it next to something like Paranormal Lockdown or Ghost Adventures. Like, they don't really catch a lot, so it could be seen as a stunt to try and boost the ratings. They've apparently been seen doing that in the past. Now, what I will say is the whole thing, like, if you just look at it, like, it all seems kind of staged. The way they're talking seems kind of scripted. Like, it just doesn't flow like a natural occurrence. And I'll go through a few points that I think really point to this not being legit. Like I say, it might be, but these are points that for me just look a little bit suspicious. The first one is the fact that they hear these footsteps down the hallway, which is fine, but when they go and take a look down the hallway, they know exactly where in the hallway it came from. Like, this is just a minor thing, but if you're in a room and you hear something coming from a corridor, you're just going to hear echoes of it in the doorway. You're not going to come over and know exactly the spot in the hallway. Like, oh, it's right there in the middle, like this spot right here, which then just happens to be the spot where the apparition appears. Like, I thought that was odd. Second thing is the point in itself, like pointing at the spot, that you could see that as a setup because you don't want the audience to miss what you're about to do. So you're like, right here, look at this spot. Bit suspicious. The fact that Carl puts the camera down, I couldn't really think of a good reason for it. Like, he puts the camera down so it's stationary, and then does, as far as I can hear, like, he doesn't seem to go anywhere. It doesn't come on camera. Like, there was no reason for him to really put it down to sit and look down the corridor. He was already doing that. That was odd. You could argue that that was because he wanted to do the effect where you layer a person over, and you do that by leaving the camera in one place. If it's waving around, then you've got to track it and make it sit on the video. Like, it's much harder to do. It's just straight up easier if it's on a flat surface not moving. So you could argue that that's why he did that. The apparition itself, for me, looks fine. Like, it looks legit. Like, it's transparent, you know what I mean? It's slightly out of focus, like, it's not quite clear, it's got dodgy motion to it. Like, you could argue that's a pretty legit looking apparition, except the fact that it's moving at a slower frame rate than the rest of the video. Like, Stu's on the side and he's pointing, he's going, oh, I can see it right there. And he's moving smooth, 25 frames a second, not a problem. But then the apparition, while Stu's on camera, is moving at like 5 frames a second, like it's jerky. Like, it's not a fluid motion, and there is no reason a camera would go 5 frames a second on this point, but 25 over here. Like, that just didn't make any sense to me. I'm not sure why that was a thing. And then lastly, it's the apparition itself. Like, people said that it can't be a real ghost because it's wearing jacket and trousers. Like, for me, that's not a reason it can't be a ghost. There can be spirits nowadays that died recently that have those clothing on. I don't see why that puts it off, but the apparition did look remarkably like Stuart from the back. Like, the frame, the jacket and the trousers that he was wearing just kind of looked like him. It's too far away to get any definition on, you know, the clothing, but it just looked like a jacket and trousers, and the build and stuff. Like, it all kind of looked a bit suspicious. As I say, it could quite possibly be legit, but they're just a few reasons why I personally think it's probably set up. Tracy asks, do you think the mist apparition is what all the years of activity you've experienced has been building up to? No, not necessarily. I don't think it's that it's built up to this point. I think with any apparition, it's very much dependent on the environmental factors around it. Like, I've had moments where I've been using like the K2 meter and it's been going off like crazy. I'm 100% sure that there is a spirit present, yet it's not appearing on camera. And personally, I think it's because the temperature, the amount of light, humidity, etc., like, they just haven't lined up just right. I think when they get to a certain combination of each, like a certain formula, where that spirit becomes visible. Like, I can't scientifically prove it, but that's my theory. And perhaps when it's a mist-like apparition, the humidity is just a tiny bit higher. Like, everything lines up so perfectly that the spirit's able to appear on camera, but then like that touch more humidity just causes it to be less solid and more, mist-like. That's my theory. It's not actually the first time I've caught a mist apparition. I think there was a Halloween a couple of years ago where I had crazy setup, like gadgets and stuff all over the house, and I caught a mist apparition going up the stairs then as well. So yeah, I personally think it's down to the environmental factors. And so that's it for this week's Q&A, guys. I hope I answered your questions sufficiently and in enough detail. As I said before, if I didn't get to your question in this video, don't worry, I might get to it in the next one. If not, just drop it down in the comments and I'll answer it as soon as I can. So thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll post any and all activity as and when I get it.